Thank you for joining us on this webinar, our second in the series of webinars about global cache control from Crestron. This is our LCD IR app for Crestron Home and Crestron Custom. Today we're going to be concentrating on Crestron Custom. Thank you for joining us. We will just get started in a moment. We are recording this presentation and the recording will be available on the website. On the support pages, past events, you can find all of our previous webinar recordings along with all of our other support information and documentation. So we'll get started. If we can move across to the next slide, I'm just going to do some introductions to the presenters today. So I'm Neil Silver, I'm the lead developer at LCD here in Edinburgh. Joining me is my colleague Tony Howard, who is a CSP as well at LCD, and he is a system architect on products and solutions for LCD. The product we're talking about today is our IR app. We've already started the recording. We're talking about our IR app for control of infrared devices from all sorts of software systems. The first things that we've focused that in on is for Crestron Home, working on Crestron Home on devices on MC4, CP4Rs, but also with a focus on the virtualized Crestron Home on PC4R as well. And we talked about that in our webinar a couple of weeks ago, which is available to stream and to look at online. Today we're going to talk about the usage of the same wonderful kind of application that we've created for setting up your infrared codes with a specific focus on Crestron Custom. So Crestron Custom is a kind of name that we coined, I think, around, or maybe many coined, just to differentiate between Crestron Home, a kind of configuration solution, to Crestron Custom when we're working in simple Windows or simple Sharp in these configuration tools. So I was going to pass over to Tony just to give us a little bit of background around how the IR app, the LCD IR app, came about and what we were trying to achieve with it in isolation, and then we'll go on to look at a little bit of the usage of it and how we use it within a custom Crestron solution.
Thanks, Neil. Yeah, so obviously we looked at the Global Cache product as our first sort of IR product to try and bring in. It's obviously a really good little box that has been around for quite a while, and our initial resolve was to try and make that work within Crestron Home and any sort of virtual environments, because that's obviously quite a large part of the industry at the moment. There's a lot of virtualization going on. And what we started to realize is obviously IR is a bit of a difficult thing for many people. Understanding infrared codes, where's the emitter, what's the right code for my model, how do I make sure this is going to work in my use case? And we started to sort of put together some really good user interface for a system admin individual or a Crestron Home administrator to actually go through and put IR codes into that global cache, for that global cache product into their Crestron Home system. And we started to realize there was still a really good product here for Crestron Custom. So you already had some global cache integrations in Crestron Custom for quite a while. That usually involves a fair amount of copying and pasting of codes from emails and finding a particular hex string from some remote central somewhere. We're recognizing that there is a large set of Crestron Custom programmers who are looking to offer a configurable solution to their end users. So we've recognized that you could actually use the same product that we put together for Crestron Home. You could put that into your project, obviously use it for yourself to configure, use the entire global cache IR database to find any of the codes that you want for your particular model, add in custom codes, all these various great features, but also it is such a good user interface and so intuitive that you could actually give it to an end user. And this, for example, I'm quite excited about it in terms of, for example, a large hospitality complex. Perhaps it's a hotel with 80 odd rooms and 80 odd different screens. You could put a global cache in each room, put a Crestron Custom project in, and if any of the staff members need to change a TV for whatever reason, they would have within their capabilities quite easily able to change that IR, the LG to a Sony, various particular functions of it. So that's what we're going to show you a bit of today. And show you how that could work and how you could use it in a few different examples.
So I was thinking while you were talking there, a Crestron Custom Programmer, CSP, or a certified programmer, before this, what they would use to talk to Global Cache, they might use something as simple as a TCP client to just do a simple GET request. They might use, I know Global Cache have some other existing kind of custom modules, but even with those, as you say, you need to go and at compile time, you need to have the IR codes, you need to know which screen is on the wall, and not only which screen is manufacturer, you need to know which model and what have you.
And you need to know which of those codes. You could spend quite a long time just finding out of the, even if you find the right code set, you could spend a very long time just cycling through, oh, is this the play button? No, or is this the play, oh, is this the HDMI 1 button? It's a real nightmare.
It's a real bind, and many of the people watching will have been in the kind of IR panic room trying to get that over the line on a Friday and finding that it's tough. So within, as we say, we really designed this for non-programming level users so that they can find and connect the device. First of all, that's the first challenge. If we've got this little black box on the network, we need to be able to locate it. We need to be able to find it. So the first stage of that is this connection, is connect. The software will locate on depending on network conditions, as with all kind of UDP discovery, it will discover Global Cache supported devices on your network, and it will present them in a simple list for you so that you can add them. If it's not discoverable on the network, or for example, if you're setting up ahead of time because you don't have the device, the hardware yet on the network, or network conditions don't allow it, you can add the device manually and do all the setup even before you've got a device. You can get a certain way through the setup without a device. So the next stage that we get onto is then looking at what code sets. Now, what we've done here is we've partnered with Global Cache's Control Tower database. It's an online database which has a huge number of infrared codes for a huge number of manufacturers. This initial solution that we've come up with for Crestron Home and Crestron Custom is looking at display types specifically. The database supports multiple different types as well. So it's a simple kind of process where once we've selected our device that we're going to use as our I/O box, we're then going to search for the brand, the manufacturer of the device, select what type it is, and then we'll be presented with a selection of different code sets for that device. The way that the Control Tower database works is rather than having individual code sets for every single model, they've tried to consolidate those into a couple of code sets. It does vary from manufacturer to manufacturer. So this flexibility piece is the huge amount of codes that we bring in. So there's no going and searching, as Tony says, Remote Central or Crestron groups and all these things going, has anyone got a code for this box? We try to take that away because for the user that we're designing this for is not going to have access to those sort of resources. And even as Tony said, when I go to a site, I don't really want to have to go and search and troll the internet and scrape the internet for IR codes if I can help it. But we do then want to test those codes. It's all very well Control Tower telling us that we've got a suitable code set, but we want to test them. So what we do, and we'll move on into the demo and we can have a look at this. What we then do is we allow a really simple, quick way for us to test those codes on the live device, see that they're working, see that the repeats are right, see that the functionality, see that we're not getting duplicate calls, for example. So we are going to announce during this webinar that we're going to already bring support for AVRs to Crestron Home next week, and the versatility will continue to grow from there into all sorts of different IR controls using this same configuration tool.
Sure.
So,
should we show them the product?
Jump over to the demo, Tony, please.
Yeah.
I've dumped on Tony. Tony is presenting duties today because I'm not in the office, so I'm presenting remotely.
So I think one of the other really exciting things that came out of this development was we have essentially put together a brand new look and feel web app. And so if any of you knew our previous web app in Crestron Home, that was the place where you could do some of the setup and the licensing of any of our products. The same applies here. We've just updated the way that works and the look and feel of it. This is the very beginning of the web app that most people would see. This is the bit where, as a dealer or as an integrator, you could come in and you could actually set up, make sure the driver, the module as it is in this instance, is working correctly with the right version numbers, is licensed. You could add the license in this place here, purchase the license as well from the website, and put the license in here and link to your own licenses as they are. This is also the gateway to where we can actually go in and configure the product. So to give you a bit of a quick demo now, let's go through and configure it. This is a
And I guess
module that we've added into a
we're
project
talking
earlier.
here in this example where we've got a single global cache display that we want to control within our program, and we're just setting that up.
Yeah. One thing that's worth mentioning is all of this web UI that we're seeing here is actually being served from the Crestron from the Crestron processor. This is a CP4 in this instance, but we've tested it all the way down to little RMC4s and sort of
VC4.
VC4 as well is the important one. It's a big one. So all of this UI is being run off that device. There is a very basic device finder that just goes off and does a quick UDP search across the network, and it's actually found one of the global caches over there in Neil's office at the moment. This one's on 192.168.10.97. If we select that, we're going to be immediately presented with some details for how to set up this particular global cache. Which port did we want to use on the global cache? We wanted to use port 3. What was the brand of the model that we wanted to control? We could just type in Sony, for example, and pick from one of the Sony brand names. What is the type of device we want to control? In this instance, it's a TV. If I was to look through the rest of the list, there's going to be other stuff in here as well. Box systems, HVAC, any of the various types are available underneath that brand. But as we're doing a display, we're just going to select the TV. From there on, it's going to show us, as Neil mentioned before, the IR database from Global Cache. They really tried to consolidate everything down. So for Sony, they've done a pretty good job of consolidating everything down to just 2 types, all models, extended code set, and all models, all types. If I wanted to do a bit of testing between which of these 2 is correct for me in my instance, I could select the first one, for example, and I could actually just press the Show Test Codes button. This is really where this is quite a very powerful product, because using this Show Test Codes, we can just do a little bit of validation without actually going further into the setup. That has actually gone up to the database, downloaded the particular code set and a couple of test codes that we could use, and we can actually just press that button there. It's going to have sent a code through the global cache right now on port 3 as we'd set up, and we can test whether the power on works. Maybe I needed a few more repeats. Yes, that works. We're just going to here at this point, we're just testing some various codes. If it wasn't the right one, we could come back up here, select the other code set or another device, another type, another model, and we would be given whatever notes we have from the database. And we again go through, show those test codes, and test that functionality. The real power is at this point in time, we're really sure, we're absolutely certain that these codes are the right codes for our display. We can then go press save and continue. And this is where that versatility comes in, because we've now got all our codes, but we might have wanted to change a little bit around what code specifically gets sent when we select the volume up or HDMI 1 or input 1, any of these various functions. What is the actual code that we want it to be sent? We've already gone through and set up as many.
I really like this bit, Tony, because
Yeah.
I really like the bit where we just go and assign all these codes, because I think that's quite, because this is where this links together to Simple Windows in this case.
Yes.
Where in Simple Windows, for each of the commands in this command list that's in front of you, we have a digital signal that when you go high on that digital signal, it's going to send that command. But what we're doing here is we're tying up the command list to a function or functions. And that the little bit that we do while that spinner's spinning is we go and look at the command set that you've selected, and we kind of go, well, if you've got something that's called HDMI1, you probably want that queued up next to HDMI1.
Yeah.
But as Tony says, there may be some, well, it may be that your installer has got HDMI 1 and 2 the wrong way around.
And you need to make that change there. That's a really good
That
point.
might be the place that it's just the really straightforward way to change it.
And so if that was the case, yeah, we'd come in here and we'd say, look, let's go find input HDMI1. Okay, it's already got a function assigned to it. No problems. Let's go see what that function is. It is input HDMI1, as you mentioned. Perhaps at this point in time, I'm actually going to change it to HDMI2, or perhaps as well in some of these code sets, there's a particular version of HDMI2 that is slightly alternated for whatever reason. So we might actually pick that as our example. We might find that we have a very specific use case where obviously some old TV, some old, clunker that's been sitting around, the clients ask you to put in needs you to set the input code followed by the up button twice followed by enter. So that's all quite capable because we can actually just put in here very quickly a delay, for example. We can then put in the up button, or we can do channel up, whatever those various codes are. We can set ourselves all the way through here a quick macro to say, right, anytime the input HDMI1 code is sent, send input HDMI2 alternate delay for 2 seconds or 2000 milliseconds, send the channel up, send whatever other command you needed to send after that, and that will run every time they send HDMI1. So that's been a really powerful sort of little feature we've added into this macro builder as it is.
And we've got a save changes button here because at this point you're still setting up the changes. So once you've tested, so you can test the individual commands within the command set using the play button within the commands, or the run all commands at the bottom. The licensing check kicks in at this point because this is commands. These button presses on the UI, once you're at the command list, are exactly the same functionality that goes on when you raise a digital within the module. So those are limited by license. However, as we'll look at, in terms of taking this and trying it, you can grab a 7-day license key from the website for completely free of charge, so that you can run this on a product. Licensing is per slot, so that's either a VC4 room or a slot on a multi-slot processor such as a CP4, or processor wide, or a single slot on a single slot processor.
Yep.
Let's just rattle through. I'm just aware of time, and also that in terms of this IR app functionality, this piece we did cover in the previous webinar as well.
Yes,
so maybe
absolutely.
Just run through a couple of quickly things that there is the ability of downloading the set of codes and uploading a custom set, and then I think we should move on to the simple Windows bit.
This is a really powerful thing. We understand a lot of people are doing repetitive functions. Sometimes in our industry, we're doing a custom system, but actually there's just 200 odd global caches, or there's 200 displays. So it may very well be that you get yourself in a position where you've created the IR functionality exactly as you need for the entire project. You could come back into this part of the project and actually download a backup. It will just download a small little file onto my desktop at the moment. And you could go to the next unit, wherever you are, another room, and you can upload that same file, and all of these same functions and various settings will be applied in there. Another really great little function that I think is quite important for this product is if you are setting this up, and here I am sitting in front of my computer and it's a bulky laptop in the office somewhere, and I actually need to go and test this in front of the TV, I can actually use this quick scan and share function, scan this on my iPhone, scan it on any phone with a QR code reader. It will open as a link, and I could go use my phone now to run this exact same application in the exact same place that I was setting this up to test the codes in front of the TV as I'm standing there in
While
another part of the
while
building.
you're holding onto the IR bud, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah, while you're holding on to it or trying to find their exact location, all those various things. This is a really good little feature. One other little part to mention is back over here when we're actually looking for our particular code set. If we can't find the code that we want, and we do need to go back to that old school way of having to go find some crazy hex code off Remote Central, whatever it happens to be, we have a function to be able to download a custom code template. That's going to download a little JSON file onto my desktop. I can actually go in, edit that JSON file, put in all the various codes, hex functions, everything that I need that's custom, and then upload that in and use that here for this particular device. That's kind of the bells and whistles of it. I suppose we should go through the simple Windows module.
So yeah,
Neil?
I think so. Yeah, if you take us across to the simple window module, I think because as I say, target audience of this call are custom programmers who are setting up these sort of scalable codes for people. So there's another couple of points to mention just in terms of those JSON files and in terms of maybe scripting options or advanced options that you could do. So the persistent storage of the file set for the individual instances of the module is on the file system of the processor that you're running on. That file structure, we don't explicitly document it within the help file for the thing, but it's very easy for a Crestron certified programmer to have a look at that, which does mean also that it's certainly feasible that you could script it, that you could script updates to these to the code sets that are being used. It's also eminently possible for you to take that downloaded file and upload it to another processor within the another instance within the box, another program running on another processor, or even email it to somebody else and upload it over there. The last quick one I had was around offline access. So obviously the online database in nature is an online database, and it does require internet access during that setup. However, we have provided within the compiled code a small number of offline code sets for the main manufacturers. So you'll see for Sony there are 2 entries. The Sony LCD is an offline code set. So the second thing, and the more important thing I think really to say, is that as soon as the configuration is complete in terms of downloading codes and then doing your functionality, you no longer need internet access for the continued function of the IR codes. They're all stored within the persistent storage of the software. So yeah, over to you, Tony. You take us a quick look through the simple Windows module.
Well, look, this is a simple Windows module. I suppose most people should be reasonably familiar with simple Windows and the sort of environment that we're looking at here. The module itself has kind of got a basic kind of setup and information around this instance. So the first thing to point out is this is a multi-instance driver, a multi-instance module. You can add just about as you want per the program slot, sort of within reason. There's obviously some memory limits you might get to if you add thousands of them, but they're a pretty robust little module. You will find for each of the instances that you have, we have a URL that we can actually link to. So you could send this in an email, or it could go to a VT profile, so someone could actually use that URL to access these pages as we're seeing here. That's actually sort of a shortened down, somewhat shortened down version of this URL that we're seeing up here. Beyond that, we've actually got whatever the particular code set is, type, actual brand, all this various information, the IP address and port that has been selected, some licensing information, and some details and some logging. The way the actual module works is, for the most part, you will use these functions and tie them directly to functionality on a touch panel or functionality within the program. For example, if the power on press was selected in the program, that digital was to go high, we would actually be sending the power on macro that we'd set up a little bit earlier. The same with power off, HDMI 1, as I mentioned before, we would be sending that that string of HDMI codes, of IR codes that were associated with HDMI 1. What we have done in addition to that is we have added on a enabled feedback This is really to say someone has associated at least one code with the power on function. So if you were to put this directly on your touch panel, you could put that on a visibility join and say, yes, the power on button works. Probably more importantly, it might be some of the more
Some of the
intricate
color buttons
details,
or
some of the
something,
color buttons. Yeah. So
something
only
like that.
show those buttons. Yeah. Some additional little features that are in there are the channel set feature. This is just a serial string. You could put in, I think there's up to like 20 numbers, Neil. I can't remember if there's a limit on the length of the string, but you could put in a channel favorite and it will just go off and say channel one, then there's a delay period at channel two, channel three, whatever the various channel macros that you need. And
And we've
there
got some
is,
documentation
and we've
and
got
an
some
article
documentation
about
on that.
that.
Yeah.
I don't think we'll go through it just now, but
No,
we've
that's
got some
right.
detail about that around if you need to put in delays and if you need to put in a code at the start, code at the end, and what have you.
A couple of little bits. Obviously, there's a couple of parameters. The first one being a license key, and then we also have a unique file ID. And this unique file ID is referencing what Neil was just mentioning. We do have a persistent storage for this particular setup, so it will obviously be saved through a reboot. And in this instance, the file itself will be called display1 within that folder. So it is important that these are unique. They are a unique ID that is required.
If you want them to be, I guess.
They could all
So
just refer to the same folder
if you have a
location. Yeah.
specific requirement where you have exactly the same setup and you're confident you're just rolling that to multiple instances, then you can point these all to the same file location. That does work as well.
And then on top of that, this display one field is also used in a handy little page that we've created. This is created on the fly for each simple Windows program, simple Windows slot that you have in your system. And this is just a quick link to all of the displays as they are installed on that system at that time. And that just takes us to these setup pages that we just ran you through a second ago. So it's not out of the box. You are completely capable to be able to just give the link for this link here to your end user, and they can go through and set up each one of these with some referencing of which display is which and how they can change them.
So just jumping back to the licensing piece for a second on the Simple Windows module, Tony, I just wanted to drive home around that because although we're talking specifically around this module for IR app today, this licensing process is how licensing works in all of the modules available from LCD. There are a couple of different ways you can license. If you wanted to control the usage of this software, which is going out into the world, then you can not enter a compile time license key here. You can leave that license key blank, and you might be passing on a license key to control the usage of your program using the modules that are in it that are crucial to the functionality of that program. So, however, you might have another instance where you may put in a license key and you're using this in a scalable code. But you don't want to have to give out license keys to each of your individual sites. So we do support that in terms of if you have a requirement for a scalable code that is using a module within it, we will sell you a multi-slot license. You'll have a single license key that you can put into your compiled code. You can then load that code to the number of sites that you need to. You can manage those licenses within your My Account page on the website, and you'll see those different codes registering in. Once the allowance of codes is used up, you won't have any more available licensing slots. But it means that essentially a little bit we're licensing our licensing. We're allowing you to control, which I think is a really crucial thing, and it's a thing that we've talked about it before, Tony, that hasn't made it out in this AV industry. The IP of our code is really difficult to protect in simple Windows. We have come up with our licensing system to allow it for flexibility for our own projects, where we're creating really powerful tools with nice user interface. But we want to protect that. We want to make sure that we know where it's being used, how it's being used, and make sure the user experience is maintained. So that these different methods of licensing allow that to happen.
and we also really want you to understand, or to know that we're looking out for people looking to do scalable code. So if you're doing scalable code, there are solutions for you. This is not something that you're going to have to manage on each one of your different projects. You could use the same license key here, and we'll sell you some scalable code license keys that you could use in all of your projects if that was the way you do business.
I think we've kind of covered off. So the last thing I wanted just to mention just now before we think about anything else. So I did have a question in on the chat. It's from somebody around about the components.
Mhm.
If you go back just to the configurator component, I'm calling it a
Yes,
component. That's our name for it.
that's
So
our internal name for it. Yes.
we mentioned and we've created on the fly a little web page where it's got links to these different things. Um,
Mhm.
these components can be used within a custom web page or within a custom touch panel page. Tony mentioned we can pass a link to VT Pro. There's obviously some limitations within VT Pro and the browser within a VT Pro project. Obviously, within a HTML project, these components are designed to be used as part of a bigger remit. So in this instance, in the page that Tony's showing you just now, we're seeing one component. These can be tiled up. Even there's lots of potential for using those within a scalable code in a small custom web page or project to build up that control that you need. So in the simple page where we've got just a list of the devices within those, it'd be very easy to take that example there and build it up into a small custom web page, just for example, splitting the components out into floors, or people have different responsibilities for different areas, sections of a building. So these are very flexible for an advanced certified programmer with some even basic HTML capabilities
Yep.
to go and build up a really great looking custom product to put out with your code. These will also these components again are really a fundamental to how we bring this more advanced functionality to simple Windows codes, and these will be coming in more and more of our modular
Yeah,
products coming in 2024.
absolutely. The usage, once we start moving into HTML, the sort of usability of some of these functions, schedules, and we have all sorts of things coming down the road that we sort of look to add that can be re-implemented by Crestron Simple Windows Programmer to give them some HTML user interface that they could use within their projects.
And I guess we've not shown you anything custom today. Everything that you've seen
Yeah.
today is just dropping the module into the program.
Yes.
Nothing custom here today, mainly because I didn't have time to rattle something custom off. I did say I might. So yeah, the question was, where can I use that? Where can I use that component within my
Yep.
projects? And really,
Yeah.
you're not really limited by us in terms of where you can
No.
use it. You
You
can route it remotely, like Tony says. Passing that on via an email, something like that, maybe a little bit limited, but within a corporate LAN situation, then quite possibly it's part of the solution.
Yes. And yeah, mostly to point out, so this has all been hosted off the box. All these files are currently on the Crestron Home processor, as well as the API that's doing all the talking. The only thing that's been happening in the cloud was the license check and any of the online database downloads that happen as you go and select different codes.
Yeah.
But as Neil mentioned, there are a few of those that are already built in. So even if you didn't happen to have a good internet connection for that part of the setup, you would have a basic set of codes or the custom codes.
So the last question I had was just around what supported hardware in terms of global cache, sorry. So we support essentially all of the global cache I/O output boxes for infrared, which is the ITAC, the little flex boxes, and also the Connect products. There's a limitation on the Connect products in that you can only use the initial 3 ports in the current IR app. But apart from that, all global cache, we will look to make a change to that to make that more flexible as required, really, I guess.
Yeah.
Anything else I've missed, Tony? I was just going to move on to what's kind of coming next.
I think it's worth mentioning this is in the form of a display driver at the moment. So all the codes are kind of really display based. And I think we probably want to hear from you guys if you feel like you'd like different versions of it as a module, even if it's just a custom version where we just label all the various buttons 1 through to 100. That's completely fine. Just get in contact and we'll make it. That part is very simple. We've just sort of made it look and feel like a display driver because it's easy to communicate in this way. But we're really looking for some feedback if you guys need specifics, specific commands, or anything along those lines. We'd love to hear from you about that.
And how do they get it if they want to just download it and try it just now?
If they want to get it, they should go to the LCD website, lightingcontrol.co.uk. The particular product in this instance is the LCD IR app for simple Windows. This is the page here. You can find that on the store.
You're talking to advanced Crestron programmers, Tony. They'll manage to find the product.
They'll be able to find this link in the thing. We will send some links around. There is the actual page here. We've actually got a little tab for the product download page. This is the new look and feel release section for all of our products moving forward. Here you can actually download the latest version. As we mentioned, for functionality, you will need a license. So if you're just giving it a go, you can just purchase a demo 7-day license, which is free, but does need your account to be set up within the Lighting Control website. And obviously as well, there is the single slot room license once you're ready to go with the project or the purchase, basically.
So yeah, so bringing us to a close, I would say the next things on our kind of LCD agenda, there will be another version for Crestron Home coming out next week for AV receivers. Following that, early 2024, some of these components, there's going to be a new release of our logging module, and I think that will be the next webinar. We don't have a date set for it yet, but that will be looking at our cloud logging solution for VC4, or well, for custom Crestron Custom, but also with a specific view to VC4. So look out for the AVR coming out next week. Our December newsletter will go out just before Christmas, and we will have the dates of the next webinar on there. Have a great Christmas. Hopefully everybody's well set up for it. Have a happy holidays, and we will see you in the new year.
Yes, see you everyone. Thank you for joining us.